Emma never imagined that a simple trip to the grocery store would change her life forever. At 38 years old, married for 15 years to Michael, she believed she knew every detail of her husband's life. But when she saw that woman in the cereal aisle, holding hands with a little girl who had the same green eyes as Michael, her world collapsed. The child called the man beside her daddy, and that man was identical to her husband. What Emma discovered after this revelation was far beyond betrayal. It was a mystery that would question everything she believed about love, family, and identity. Emma Johnson had always been an observant woman. She worked as a high school teacher in Portland, Oregon, and had developed over the years a sharp ability to notice details that others ignored. That's why, when she saw that scene at the Whole Foods supermarket on Saturday afternoon, she immediately knew something was wrong. The woman was blonde, elegant, about 35 years old. She wore a gray wool coat that Emma recognized as being from the same expensive brand that Michael used to buy for her on anniversaries. But it wasn't the woman who caught her attention first. It was the little girl. The girl must have been about 7 years old, with curly brown hair like her own, but with those unmistakable green eyes. The same eyes she admired on Michael's face every morning. The child held a box of Lucky Charms cereal, the same one that Michael always bought secretly, pretending it was for her, but which Emma knew he ate when he thought nobody was watching. "Daddy, you promised we were going to buy ice cream too," said the little girl, tugging at the sleeve of a man who had his back turned. Choosing something from the refrigerated shelves. When the man turned around, Emma felt her legs weaken. It wasn't Michael. It was impossible to be Michael, because Michael was at home, mowing the lawn. She had left him there less than an hour ago. But that face, those broad shoulders, even the small scar on his forehead, everything was exactly the same. Emma hid behind a stack of tomato sauce cans, watching the scene with her heart beating irregularly. The man laughed the same way Michael laughed, with that deep sound that always made her smile. He picked up the little girl with the same caring movement that Michael made with his nephews. "Of course, princess. Chocolate ice cream for my favorite girl," he said, kissing the child's forehead. The blonde woman approached and kissed the man on the lips. "David, don't spoil her dinner with too much sugar," she said, but in a loving way that made it clear this was a common family discussion. David. The name echoed in Emma's mind like an alarm bell. Who was David? And why was he physically identical to her husband, Michael? Emma followed them discreetly through the supermarket, keeping her distance, but registering every detail. The way David held his wife's hand, how he crouched down to be at his daughter's height when she spoke to him. The products they put in the cart, everything organic, exactly as Michael insisted they buy at home. When they reached the checkout, Emma positioned herself to overhear the conversation. The blonde woman paid with a credit card, and Emma managed to hear the name, Rebecca Thompson. In the parking lot, she saw them getting into a navy blue Subaru Forester, exactly like the one Michael drove. Except his was parked in the garage at home. She quickly noted the license plate on her phone, OBT 4792. Throughout the drive home, Emma tried to process what she had seen. Twins. Did Michael have a twin brother he had never mentioned? But how was this possible? They had been married for 15 years. She knew his family, or at least thought she did. When she got home, Michael was still in the yard, sweaty, wearing the same clothes she had left him in. He smiled when he saw her, that familiar smile that always melted her heart. "How was the market, honey? Did you buy those organic strawberries you wanted?" he asked, approaching to give her a kiss. But all she saw was the same loving expression as always. "Michael," she began hesitantly, Do you have any brother I don't know about?" His expression changed subtly. A flash of something, surprise, fear, passed through his eyes before he gave a forced laugh. "You know I'm an only child, Emma. Why are you asking that?" But Emma had noticed. That micro-expression hadn't gone unnoticed by her. Michael was lying, and for the first time in 15 years of marriage, she was absolutely certain of it. That night, Emma could barely sleep. She lay, watching Michael beside her, studying every line of his face, every detail she had memorized over the years. How was it possible for someone physically identical to him to exist? And more importantly, why had Michael reacted so strangely when she asked about brothers? The next day, while Michael was at work, Emma decided to investigate. She started with the documents they kept in the home office: birth certificate, passport, driver's license. Everything confirmed that Michael Johnson, born March 15th, 1985, in Seattle, Washington, was the only child of Robert and Margaret Johnson. But then she found something strange. An old wallet hidden at the bottom of a drawer that Michael rarely opened. Inside it, besides normal documents, there was a photo that left her breathless. It was Michael, or David, at 16 years old, hugging another boy identical to him. On the back of the photo, it was written, "David and Daniel. Last day at the orphanage, minus 2001. Emma's hands trembled. Daniel, not Michael. And who was David? She photographed the image and continued searching. She found more photos, all hidden, showing the two boys at different ages. Some had notes on the back: Danny and Dave, 8 years old. The twins' foster family, number 3, David and Daniel, always together. Emma sat heavily in the office chair. Michael, or Daniel, had lied to her about his entire identity. He wasn't an only child. He had a twin brother named David, and both had grown up in orphanages and foster families. But if the man she saw at the supermarket was David, who was the man she had been married to for 15 years? She decided to confront Michael when he got home from work, but first she needed more information. She used the computer to search for David Thompson, Oregon, and Rebecca Thompson, Portland. She found social media profiles that confirmed her worst fears. David Thompson, 38 years old, married to Rebecca for 10 years, father of little Sophia. In the Facebook photos, he appeared at family events, trips, everyday moments, a complete parallel life. And in some older photos, Emma recognized places where she and Michael had also been. The same restaurant where they celebrated their 5th wedding anniversary. The same beach where they spent their honeymoon. The most disturbing thing was that some of David's photos were from dates when she knew exactly where Michael was supposedly working or on business trips. When Michael came home that night, Emma was sitting in the living room with all the photos spread out on the coffee table. "We need to talk," she said, her voice firmer than she felt. Michael stopped at the living room door, seeing the photos. His expression went through several stages: shock, fear, resignation, and, finally, relief. "How did you find out?" he asked, sitting heavily on the sofa beside her. "It doesn't matter how. What matters is why you lied to me all these years. Who are you, Michael or Daniel?" He sighed deeply, running his hands through his hair in a gesture that Emma recognized as a sign of extreme nervousness. "I'm Daniel. Daniel Johnson. I legally changed my name to Michael when I left the adoption system," he admitted. "David is my twin brother. We were separated when we were 12 years old. He was adopted by a family in Portland. I went to Seattle, and you reconnected," Emma said. "It wasn't a question. 8 years ago, he looked for me through an agency. At first, it was just curiosity, longing. But then we discovered we could switch places occasionally. He wanted to experience a different life, and so did I." Emma felt nausea rising in her throat. "You're switching places. For how long? How often?" Not Michael, looked away. "Not much. A few times a year. Weekends, holidays. He comes here, I go there. Our wives never suspected. Our wives," Ma repeated, incredulous. "You're talking like we're objects you share." "It's not like that, Emma. I love you. David loves Rebecca. We don't do this to hurt you. It's just that we grew up separated, always wondering what the other's life would be like. This gave us the chance to experience it." Emma looked at the man she had loved for 15 years and realized she didn't know him at all. How many times had she kissed David, thinking it was Daniel? How many intimate conversations had she shared with the wrong man? "I need to know the complete truth," she said, standing up. "And I need to talk to Rebecca. The meeting with Rebecca Thompson was scheduled for the next day at a neutral cafe in downtown Portland. Emma arrived 10 minutes early, chose a table in the back, and ordered chamomile tea, hoping it would help calm her nerves. When she saw Rebecca enter, elegant blonde, exactly as she remembered from the supermarket, her stomach contracted. Rebecca recognized her immediately and approached with an expression that mixed curiosity and apprehension. "You must be Emma," she said, sitting across from her. "So you already know everything," Emma replied, studying the face of the woman who, unknowingly, had shared her husband with her for years. Rebecca sighed. "I found out 3 years ago. At first, I thought it was a child's imagination, but I started noticing small inconsistencies in David's behavior. Small things, food preferences that changed, habits that appeared and disappeared, and you accepted this?" Emma asked, incredulous. "At first, I was furious. I felt betrayed, deceived, exactly like you must be feeling now. But then, I understood something about David and Daniel that maybe you haven't comprehended yet." Emma leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Rebecca stirred her coffee nervously. "They're not normal men, Emma. What they went through in childhood, the forced separation, the years without knowing if the other was alive, it marked them deeply. They weren't just playing at switching places. They were trying to heal. Heal from what? From the trauma of separation. David always had nightmares about losing Daniel forever. He told me that, for years, he felt like he was only half a person. When they reconnected, they discovered that Daniel felt the same thing." Emma processed Rebecca's words. "But that doesn't justify the lie. It doesn't justify using us as actresses in some psychological experiment of theirs." "You're right," Rebecca agreed. "It doesn't justify it. But it helped me understand that they didn't do this out of malice. They did it out of desperation." The two women sat in silence for a few moments, each lost in their own thoughts. "What did you do when you found out?" Emma finally asked. "I demanded the complete truth. David told me about all the meetings, all the switches. I also insisted that they seek psychological help, both separately and together. And I established a non-negotiable condition. If they wanted to continue having contact, it had to be with complete transparency. No more lies, no more secret switches." "And did it work?" Rebecca smiled for the first time since she had arrived. "In the last 2 years, our family has become closer than ever. Sophia now knows Uncle Daniel. You're welcome in our home. David finally feels complete, and that made him a better husband and father." Emma felt tears burning her eyes. "I don't know if I can forgive Daniel. I don't know if I can trust him again. I won't say it's easy. But the love they feel for us is real, Emma. Even with all the confusion, even with all the lies, what they feel for us is the only true thing in this whole story. 3 months later, Emma was sitting in the backyard, watching Daniel. Now she always thought of him by his real name, playing with Sophia, who had become a frequent presence in their lives. The group therapy they were doing had helped tremendously, learning about the effects of childhood trauma, about the special bond between twins, about how survival mechanisms can sometimes hurt the people we love. The relationship with Daniel was different now. In some ways, more difficult. Trust needed to be rebuilt, brick by brick. But in other ways, it was deeper and truer than it had ever been. Emma, Daniel approached, sitting beside her on the garden bench. "Do you regret finding out?" She thought about the question, looking at Sophia, who now called her Aunt Emma, and at Rebecca, who had become a genuine friend. "No," she finally replied. "The truth, even when it hurts, is always better than a beautiful lie." Daniel took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "I love you, Emma Johnson." Not Daniel pretending to be Michael. And for the first time in months, Emma felt she finally knew the man she had fallen in love with 15 years ago. Sometimes, life presents us with truths that shake everything we believed we knew about ourselves and about the people we love. Emma and Daniel's story shows us that even in the most solid relationships, there can be deep secrets. But it also teaches us that true love can survive the greatest storms when there is honesty and willingness to rebuild. What would you do in Emma's place? Would you be able to forgive and start over? Or are some betrayals too big to overcome? If this story touched your heart, give it a like. Subscribe to the channel for more exciting stories like this one. And in the comments, tell me, what city or country are you watching from? I love knowing where you're spread around the world. See you in the next story.